In this video, we're going to go over PlayerPrefs. I'm going to cover two examples on how you can use them to save small amounts of data. So the first example I'm going to go over is going to be a leaderboard, and we're going to have a high score. So I'm going to go over how you can save the high score on the game. That way the player can continue to try and beat their high score if they would like. And the second one is a simple level unlock. So we're going to have 5 levels here, and the player is going to go through, and level 1 will be unlocked by default. And then they'll be able to unlock, level 2, level 3, etc. And as they unlock these levels, they will save them that way in the PlayerPrefs. That way they're unlocked already whenever the player locks back in. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started now. So we're going to start off with our leaderboards first. And this is just the current scene that we have set up. So this is a very basic leaderboard. You can see we have a current score, a high score, and a button to increase the score, and also a button to reset the score. And then we have 3 scripts over here, a button handler, which is attached to our increased score, and then our HighScoreManager, which is going to manage our high score and manage the PlayerPrefs to keep everything saved. And then also the ScoreManager, which will just increase the score for us basically, and update the text as well if needed. So let's start by going over the scripts, and then we'll jump back into the editor here and kind of go over everything and give a nice example and show how it all works together. So the first script that we're going to start with here is our HighScoreManager Script. And this script is responsible for handling the high scores in our game, specifically saving, loading, and resetting the high score. So to do this, we're going to be using the PlayerPrefs, as you can see here throughout the script. And PlayerPrefs is just Unity's way of storing simple data persistently across game sessions. So that means that even if the game gets closed, then the data is going to remain available when the player comes back and plays again. So PlayerPrefs works by storing the data as key value pairs, where the key is going to be a unique identifier, and that's what we have here as high score. That's our key. And then the value is like the actual data that we want to save. So in this instance, it's our default score of 0, which is going to be our data. The keys are always going to be strings. So they're always going to be like this in quotes. And then the values can be ints, floats, or strings. So PlayerPrefs is stored differently depending upon which platform you're on. For example, in Windows, it's stored in the system registry. All right, so let's go ahead and walk through the code here. The first thing that we have is we have our getHighScore method, and this method retrieves the high score value from our PlayerPrefs using the PlayerPrefs.getInt. So getInt is going to take in 2 arguments, the key, which is what we've explained before, the high score, and then a default value. And ours is, we're going to have ours set to 0. And this is used if there's no saved high score yet. So basically, for the first time that it's called, it's going to return 0. Next up, we have our setHighScore method, and this is going to save a new high score if we get one. And so here we're using the PlayerPrefs.setInt to set the high score. And then finally, we're going to call PlayerPrefs.save, and this function is going to force the data to be saved immediately. So although PlayerPrefs does save the data automatically at specific points, this just ensures that it happens right when we want it to. And then down here we have the reset high score method, and this method just deletes all of the high score entry from the PlayerPrefs with the PlayerPrefs.delete key. And this is more going to be used for testing. It's going to be useful for that. Or if you wanted to give the players the option to be able to reset their scores, you could do that as well. And then like before, we're calling PlayerPrefs.save so that we can save that immediately. Next, we're going to take a look at our ScoreManager script. So at the top, we just have a couple of serialized fields here for our current score text and our high score text to display the UI. And then next we have a reference to our HighScoreManager script here. And then we are setting our current score to 0 by default. And then in our start method, we're going to initialize the reference to our HighScoreManager script by using findFirstObjectByType. And then we're going to display the current score and the high score text at the start of the game. And lastly, here we have our addPoints method that increases the score and updates our score text UI. And this is going to take in a parameter of points. So here we're going to update our current score by taking our current score and plus equals the points. And then we're also going to update the text by doing the current score text.text and setting that equal to score plus our new current score. And then here we're also going to be checking if the current score exceeds the high score. And we're going to be using the HighScoreManager to set this new score as the high score. And we're also going to update the high score display text. So if the current score is greater than the current high score from the HighScoreManager, and here's where we're going to get that high score, then the HighScoreManager.setHighScore, we're going to set that to the current high score. And then we're going to update the text for the high score. And both of these are referencing our HighScoreManager script here. So we're getting the high score. So we're using that PlayerPrefs, and we're going to get that high score from here. And then down here, we're also setting the new high score. So over here, we're also using PlayerPrefs and setting the high score. And the last script that we have here is our ButtonHandler Script. And this is just for adding some points when a button is clicked. So here we have a reference to our score manager that we're using a serialized field for. So we'll assign that in the editor. And then we have one method here on add points button clicked. And this method simply calls the add points method from the ScoreManager script. So this one here. And we pass in 10. So we're just going to be adding 10 points when the button is clicked. And this is just an easy way for us to simulate that the player is getting a new score so we can show the high score functionality. So real quick, after we have gone over our 3 scripts that we have, to explain how we have this set up, we have 2 TextMesh Pro text objects here, one for the current score, one for the high score, and then we have our 2 buttons, one to increase the score and one to reset our score. We have our HighScoreManager where we have our HighScoreManager Script attached to, and then our ScoreManager where we have our ScoreManager Script attached to it. And we have both of the text objects. So we just simply dragged those in here. And then on our button, we have the ScoreManager, we have the ButtonHandler Script, and we have the ScoreManager assigned to this for our serialized field. And that way we can get a reference to that here for our onClick. We're using that onAddPoints button clicked method that we had set up in our ButtonHandler Script. And then for our reset button, this we have in our HighScoreManager, we have that reset option as well set up in there. And you can assign these simply by dragging in, here we dragged in, we have our HighScoreManager. So you would drag this in here, and then you would go down here and to the script that you want. And then you would, select the method that you want to happen for onClick. And we want ours to be resetting the score. So if we want to here, we can go ahead and we'll press play so we can demonstrate how all of this works. So here we have our score, and that's going to be set to 0 by default. The same with our high score. And then, so for example, if we were pretending that there was a player and he was running around and, getting an additional score somehow, we're just going to click the increase score button here a couple of times, and you'll see that as our current score increases, and if it goes past our high score, the high score then becomes our current score. And this is where the PlayerPrefs come in. So normally when you close this, this will reset back to 0. But since we're saving these in the PlayerPrefs, our high score is going to remain at 30. So if I stop playing, and then if I start again, you'll see that our high score starts back out at 30, since that was our high score. And then our score starts back over at 0. And then here again, we go up 10, our high score stays, 20, it stays, 30, it stays. But then once we cross over that new high score, and now our score is 40. So now our high score becomes 40 again. And so then if we, again, if we just stopped and played again, this is going to continue to save our high score since it's being saved with the PlayerPrefs. And then our reset button, just for testing purposes mainly, but if we click reset, it doesn't actually reset here, but it deletes the PlayerPrefs. So then if we stop and play again, now everything's going to be set back to 0. And that's just mainly for testing, or I guess if we wanted to give the player that option to, reset their high score, we could do that. So PlayerPrefs is really great for saving small amounts of data across sessions like the high score settings, for example. It's very quick and easy to use, but it's going to be best suited for simple, non-sensitive data. And it is limited in its size. So this is an easy way to do a high score and how you can use PlayerPrefs for the high score method. And now next we'll go ahead and we'll do another example here. In our second example here, we're going to have like a little level unlocking system. So we're going to have 5 levels, and we'll just have like a main menu here. And then our player will start in level 1. It's going to be the only one that's unlocked. And then as they progress to level 2, etc., so on, these levels will unlock as well. And then we're going to use the PlayerPrefs to save which levels the player has unlocked. So that way, if they stop the game and come back and they made it to level 3, they'll be able to come back and jump right into level 3 instead of having to start over at level 1. So we'll go ahead and get started on how this is set up. So just to go over how this is set up real quick, in case you're curious, we do have a few different scenes. We have our main scene, which is our level unlock scene. And this can be thought of as like our main menu that the player would see when they open the game. And then they could select which level they want to go into, as you can see here. And then we have scenes for each of the levels. And they're very basic. They just tell you which level it is. And then here you have the ability to click on the button here to unlock the next level. And then each one of these buttons just has the on-click method from our LevelProgressionManager Script. That method simply goes to the next level and unlocks that next level as well. And we'll go over that here in just a moment when we go through the scripts. And that script is attached here on our LevelProgressionManager. And then in our main menu, we have a very similar setup. We have all of the levels that you can choose from. And as you can see here, by default, they're going to be level 1 is going to be unlocked. So it's white and it looks like it's clickable. The other ones are just kind of grayed out and you can't actually interact with them if we were to play the game. And then here we have our LevelUnlockManager, where we have our LevelUnlockManager Script attached to it. And that's going to have references to each one of the buttons. So now we'll go ahead and jump into the scripts and go over those. So we're going to start off with our LevelUnlockManager Script here, and we'll kind of just go through this and break it down. And then we'll also go over our LevelProgressionManager Script here, and then we'll go back to the editor and demo how it works. So in our LevelUnlockManager Script, the first thing here is we have an array of buttons representing the levels, and we saw that in our editor. That's these right here, where we have our buttons over here on the right. And then the next thing, we have a for loop here where we're cycling through all of our level buttons. So the list of buttons that we have here. And this is just a standard for loop. And then the next thing here is we have a bool for whether or not the level is unlocked. And this is our first PlayerPrefs that we're going to get into for this example. And here we're using the getInt. And so this is going to, retrieve the specific int value from the PlayerPrefs. And that's going to be associated with the specific key, which is, remember, because this is a key value pair. So the key and then the value. So our key here is level underscore, and then whichever level we're on as we're going through the for loop. So it starts at 0. So 0 plus 1. So level 1 unlocked. And then if I is 1, then it's going to be level 2 unlocked is going to be our key. And then the second part over here, this is our value. And by default, it's going to be 0. And this is, again, a ternary operator, which we've went over before. And so this is going to determine the default value based on the level index. So based on I. And if I equals 0, which would be the first level, then it's going to return 1 because that level is unlocked by default. But then for all other levels, when I is going to be greater than 0, it returns 0, which is locked by default. And for this PlayerPrefs here, for the unlocked, or if we go look at our LevelProgressionManager Script, this is where we're unlocking the next level. Right here is where we're setting that int. So we would be setting the key, the level plus next level. So like level 1 unlocked or level 2 unlocked, we'd be setting that key, and then we'd be setting it to the value to a 1 here. That way we would be unlocking the level. So it'd be changing it from a 0 to a 1 when we press on our buttons or whenever we unlock the next level. So those two kind of work together there. And then here, the next line here, we're setting whether or not the button is interactable based on its unlocked state. So if it's unlocked, you can interact with it. If it's not unlocked, you can't interact with it. And this really doesn't have anything to do with the PlayerPrefs. And the same with this next section here. This is just where we're simply changing the button color if it's unlocked. And then, so it's going to be white if it's unlocked or gray if it is locked. So we're getting a reference to our color block for each one of our buttons. And then we're changing the color, the normal color here If it's unlocked, we're changing it to white. Otherwise, if it's locked, we're changing it to gray, and then we're setting the color block. So then the next one here, we are just adding a listener to listen for the on click. So if the player clicks the button that we have, and if the thing is, if it's unlocked, then we're going to go ahead and go on click to whichever button they're clicking. And then we're going to load the next, or load that level. So we're going to load the level index based on the level that we're on, or based on the level that we click. So that's going to load a specific scene whenever we click the button. And that's calling load level, which we have down here, which is just loading the scene associated with the selected level. So we're going into SceneManager.load scene, and then we're loading our level plus our level index. And those, we have them all set up here in our build profile. So level 1, level 2, level 3, 4, 5 for our different scenes here. And all we're doing is we're pulling back this index here and loading the specific one that the button is associated with. All right, and now next we're going to go over our LevelProgressionManager Script. So this script, we only have the one method here, the unlock, next level, and load method. So breaking this down, the first section here, we're just basically getting the current level number from the scene name. So we have a string, our current scene name, and that's going to equal our SceneManager.getActiveScene name. So we're getting the name of our scene. And then our current level is going to be, we're just going to parse this out because ours are named level space and then a number like level 1, level 2. If yours doesn't, if you don't have yours named like that, you'll have to do a different way. But this is just an easy way to do it for how we have them named. So what we're doing here is we're basically removing the word level and just keeping the number basically. And then here in the next section, this is where we actually unlock the next level, and we're going to use some more player prefs here. So here we have an int for our next level, and that's going to equal our current level plus 1 because we're moving up sequentially. So 1, 2, 3, etc. So here we kind of went over this, but we're going to then set our player prefs. So we're going to set the int for our player prefs, and we're using again that key value pair. So we're going to set for our key of whichever level we are for the next level. So our level, next level. So if we're on level 1, this would be, level 2 unlocked. So we're going to unlock level 2, and we're going to set that value to 1 because 0 is locked and 1 is unlocked. And then we're going to save that player pref right away. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to load the next level. So load scene level and then the next level. So we, if we're on level 2, we'll load level 3. So that's a very easy way to we're unlocking a level, and then we're saving that level's unlocked, and then we're going to the next scene, and we'll see how that works here in just 1 second. So now that we've went over how everything's set up in our editor and went over the scripts and how those work, the last thing to do here is to just kind of demonstrate this and show you how it works together. So we'll go ahead and we'll hit play here, and our game will load, and you'll see that level 1 is kind of white and the rest of them are kind of grayed out. So level 1 is the only level unlocked by default since, we're just starting our game up. So this is where the player prefs come in, and you'll see like if we go into level 1 now, since it was unlocked, here we can use that unlock next level button, and we click that, and that's going to take us to level 2. So now we've made it to level 2. Let's say we do one more, we've made it to level 3. But now if we stop the game, and if let's say our player had to take a break, for example, they had to stop and they want to come back and play, but they don't want to start all over from level 1, we had our player prefs there save where we were at. So now if we click on play, you'll see that level 1, level 2, and level 3 are all unlocked by default now this time. So, we can't go into level 4 or anything like that, level 4 or 5, because we haven't unlocked them yet. However, if we wanted to jump right back into level 3, then we can do that. Then we can continue on, to level 4, for example, if we stop, and then level 4 again will be unlocked. Everything except for level 5. So now for this one, we didn't build a button to reset the player prefs or anything like that. It's a pretty good idea if you're going to be doing a lot of testing, those kind of things. In Unity, we're using Unity 6 here, and in here you can just go to edit and clear all player prefs as well. It's pretty simple, and click yes, and it'll clear them out. If you're in an older version of Unity, I believe you have to go to edit and then preferences, And then there's a spot in here for the player prefs where you can click and then you can clear them out there. But you then, since we did clear them all out, now if we go back in, you'll see, you know, only level 1's going to be unlocked by default. So we'd have to restart all over again. But that's pretty much how they work. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty simple and easy way to store small things like this, like high scores like we already went over, or simple things that are unlocked like levels here. Just know that, you know, you're not going to want to use this for saving like your full game or anything like that. It's not going to work. Again, I did mention that this has to be smaller data, smaller values, those kind of things. It's for very simple things like this. But these are just 2 examples of how you could use player prefs in your game. Hopefully this was helpful, and thank you for watching.